When Dr. Amelia Vance, a 38-year-old forensic psychologist from London, received a mysterious letter sealed with crimson wax, she assumed it was some macabre prank from a former patient. The letter, written in elegant ink on aged parchment, simply read, "You've inherited Briarcliff House. Come alone. Answers await." There was no sender name, no address beyond Briarcliff, Gloucestershire, and yet something primal stirred in her as she read it. She hadn't heard that name since childhood. Since her mother died mysteriously in an asylum, raving about a house that watches you sleep. Amelia wasn't superstitious. She dealt with minds fractured by trauma for a living. But there was a part of her, the lonely, unanswered child, that needed to know what her mother meant. So, with no family, no active cases, and a haunting curiosity, she packed her things and left London. Briarcliff House stood like a corpse on the moors. Its iron gates squeaked open too easily, the path lined with dead rose bushes curling like claws. Moss climbed the decaying stone walls, and shattered windows looked like eye sockets. Despite years of abandonment, the door wasn't locked. It opened on its own. Inside, the air was heavy, not musty, not damp, just heavy, like the walls held their breath. The furniture remained intact, as though someone had just stepped out of the room. Paintings lined the halls, each one with scratched-out faces. Amelia explored with caution, recording notes into her phone like she did on cases. Arrived at 6:42 p.m. House intact, though untouched by modern restoration. Interior resembles early Victorian. Paintings exhibit signs of intentional defacement. In the grand sitting room, she found a cracked mirror above the fireplace. Etched into the glass were the words, "See what they couldn't." That night, she took the only bedroom that didn't feel wrong. The others had claw marks on the walls or cold spots that made her bones ache. This one felt neutral, still eerie, but less offensive. At 2:11 a.m., she woke up, gasping. There was no nightmare, no sound, just a choking sense of being observed. She turned on the lamp. Nothing. But her eyes drifted to a small music box on the dresser, one she swore wasn't there before. It was ornate, silver, and carved with an inverted tree, roots growing upwards, a design she'd seen before, in her mother's drawings. She picked it up. It didn't play music. Instead, when she turned the crank, the box emitted a low whisper, unintelligible, but definitely human. She slammed it shut. "Okay," she muttered, trying to calm herself. "It's just a trick. Sound illusion. Auditory pareidolia." But her own voice didn't sound quite right in the room, like it was bouncing off walls that weren't there. The next morning, Amelia found the hidden study behind the library. A false bookshelf clicked when she pulled a red-bound book labeled Sermons for the Hollow. The study was lined with old journals. Most were blank, but one, covered in cracked leather and bound with twine, bore her initials, E.V. Inside were entries she didn't remember writing. Pages dated from 1989, the year her mother died, when Amelia was only 2 years old. They told me never to open the music box, but I had to. I heard the voice again. The same voice Mother warned me about. The one that repeats my thoughts before I think them. More disturbing was the final entry, dated May 12th, 2025. Tomorrow. She's come back again, but this time, the house won't let her leave. Amelia dropped the journal. Her hands trembled. Her phone read, May 11th, 2025. She wasn't dreaming, and she wasn't alone in this house. Against better judgment, she drove into the nearest village, Withersby, and asked about the house. Most people denied knowing it existed. An old man outside a pub whispered, "If the house sent for you, it's because it remembers your blood." When she asked him to explain, he only said, "The Vance family used to own the cult," until they tried to bury it. Later, at the library, she found an archived article from 1896. It featured a black and white image of the house, labeled Site of the Withersby Reclamation, 14 missing in one night. The victims? All guests at a dinner party hosted by Elias Vance, her ancestor. Among them was a woman wearing a silver locket, one Amelia wore now, passed down from her mother. A chill gripped her spine. That night, Amelia sat by candlelight, flipping through the cursed journal. The house creaked above her, though no one else was there. She whispered, "I need to document this. Someone has to know what happened here. Maybe if I don't make it out." She looked directly into her phone's camera. "If you're watching this later, subscribe. Not just for my story, but so others hear the truth. So they stay away from this house, from whatever's inside." The candle flickered out, and a door cracked open behind her. Amelia followed the sound, heart thudding. The hallway had grown longer. The wallpaper now peeled back like decaying skin. At the end, a room glowed dimly. Inside, dozens of mirrors reflected a version of her she didn't recognize. In each reflection, she was doing something different. Bleeding, screaming, writing symbols in blood or worse. Smiling. In the center of the room stood the music box. Open. The whispers now took shape, forming a single phrase, "You've been here before." As she stepped closer, one mirror cracked, then another. Her reflection whispered, "You never left." The air in Ashmore had grown heavier. Jacob felt it every time he opened his eyes. The village no longer whispered, it growled. Beneath every movement, every creak of floorboards, every gust of wind. It was there, watching, waiting. After the events in the cottage, neither he nor Claire could sleep. The image of the childlike creature in the mirror was seared into their memories, the way it mimicked Claire's voice, even after its twisted face became visible. They sat silently in the living room of the manor, a single lantern flickering between them. Every shadow on the wall looked like it could move. "What if the whole town is part of it?" Claire asked, voice barely above a whisper. Jacob looked up. "Part of what?" She swallowed. "The cult. What if it's not just a few crazy people in robes? What if everyone is in on it?" Jacob hesitated. She might be right. The few villagers they'd encountered since returning had been strange. Too still, too polite, as if waiting for something. "Then we need to find proof, and fast," Jacob said, "before we end up like the couple in the journal." He pulled the tattered book from his backpack and flipped through the pages. The last entry was dated November 12th, 1987. They said we could leave after the offering. We didn't know what that meant. I think we're trapped in a loop. Every night, the same shadows, the same screams. The offering is us. God help anyone who reads this. Claire rubbed her arms. "Do you think they're still here?" "Number. But maybe the village remembers them." Just then, a loud knock hit the door. 3 slow, deliberate bangs. Jacob grabbed the lantern and cautiously approached. The door creaked open, revealing no one. Except a small wooden box sat on the doorstep. He knelt down and picked it up. It was old, blackened with age, and sealed with a wax sigil. A horned figure carved into the wax grinned up at him. Claire gasped. Don't open it. I have to. He cracked the wax and opened the box. Inside lay a charred piece of bone wrapped in crimson silk and a folded note. Jacob opened it. The ritual begins at midnight. You cannot stop it. You can only witness. They both looked at the grandfather clock in the room. 11:43 p.m. Claire stood abruptly. We're not staying here. Let's find the church. Old villages like this always have one. Maybe we'll find answers there. Jacob agreed, stuffing the bone and note into his backpack. The air outside felt colder than before. The streets were empty, but lanterns glowed in some windows, dim, flickering, like eyes half closed. They reached the church faster than expected. It loomed at the edge of the village like a sentinel. Its steeple pierced the sky, dark and jagged. The wooden doors stood ajar. Inside, dust coated everything. But the altar had been recently disturbed. Its cloth was new, fresh candles burned at the sides, and the faint smell of iron lingered in the air. Claire moved toward the altar. Behind it stood a massive crucifix, except it wasn't Jesus nailed to the cross. It was something else. The figure had horns, elongated arms, and hollow eyes. A plaque beneath it read, "He who watches through time." Jacob approached a side table covered in old texts. He opened one. The Ashmore Covenant. In exchange for time unbroken and protection from plague, the villagers offer flesh and memory to the warden. He exists beyond linear time, feeding on what once was and what will never be. Claire turned pale. It's a time loop. Jacob nodded slowly. And the offerings, they're sacrifices to keep the loop running, to keep him asleep. But if the ritual's starting again, does that mean he's waking up? Suddenly, the church bell began to ring. Midnight. The ground shook beneath them. Candles blew out. A voice echoed through the church, deep, guttural, and layered with multiple tones. The time has come. The offering must be remembered. They ran. Outside, the village had changed. The sky was now blood red, clouds swirling like ink in water. Houses flickered, disappearing and reappearing in different places. The same woman in a green bonnet passed by them 3 times, always in the same motion, same smile. We're in the loop, Claire whispered. No, Jacob said, not yet. We're in its edge. We can still in null escape. But escape to where? Then they saw it, the old stone house at the edge of the graveyard. Its windows glowed with a steady violet hue. It hadn't been there before. As they approached, whispers surrounded them. Children giggling, people weeping, songs in foreign tongues. The door opened on its own. Inside, they found a large circular room, walls covered in blackened portraits. Each face was scratched out. In the center was a table, and on it, a mirror. The same one from the cottage. Except this one was larger, and the frame was made of bones. Jacob touched it, and the mirror rippled like water. Claire backed away. Don't! But he was pulled in. He found himself standing in Ashmore, but it was different, brighter. Modern cars lined the roads. People smiled, holding grocery bags. It was Ashmore from before it fell. Then he saw them, himself and Claire, walking into the town square, watching, smiling. His hands trembled. A figure stood beside him. It wore the same mask as the creature from the mirror. You see now, it whispered. Ashmore does not die. It remembers, and you are part of its memory now. Jacob tried to scream, but his voice was gone. Back in the house, Claire pulled Jacob out of the mirror. He gasped, collapsing to the floor. I saw us, arriving again, from the start. like we were always meant to come. Claire held his face. Then maybe we can break it. Change something. Anything. The house trembled. The portraits on the wall began to bleed. You must choose, the voice echoed again. Only one may leave. The other will remain. Forever. A door appeared on the far wall. Jacob looked at Claire. No, she said, shaking her head. We go together. But the door didn't open. Jacob's heart pounded. This is the offering. One of us has to stay. She backed away. I won't let you... He kissed her forehead. I have to. Then he stepped toward the door. It creaked open and slammed shut behind him. Claire screamed. Everything went dark. Jacob awoke in a hospital bed, bright lights, beeping machines. A nurse leaned over him. You're awake. Finally. He tried to speak. Where am I? St. Helens Hospital. You were found unconscious near the ruins of Ashmore. You've been out for 3 days. He sat up slowly. Claire? The village? The nurse frowned. Sir, there's nothing left of Ashmore. It burned down in 1991. No one's lived there in decades. Jacob stared at her. He was alone. 3 nights later, Jacob sat at his desk, typing up everything that had happened. He needed to tell someone, anyone. Maybe, just maybe, if people knew the truth, they could avoid the village, avoid becoming part of its memory. He paused, looked into his laptop's camera. If you're watching this, and you ever stumble upon a place called Ashmore, don't go in, not even for a minute, because once it remembers you, you're already part of the loop. He hit upload and whispered, subscribe if you want to remember what matters.